very damaging indeed. Not only have the Indonesians got every right to be indignant about this, but we've got parliamentary elections coming up in Jakarta early next year, and then we've got presidential elections. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono has been a very relaxed president with Australia, but I'm afraid that he might be replaced by someone who's a lot tougher than he is. And the fact is that not only has the president and his family been exposed to this eavesdropping, electronic eavesdropping, but revelations are that many of the opposition people who are candidates for positions in the new government have been as well. So this is going to go on. It's not going to stop.
So you actually think that this news, this scandal, could affect the outcome of those elections, that more hardline candidates could get through because of the airing of these allegations?
That's my thought. That's what I think is probably going to happen. Look, I really think Julie Bishop, she's our new foreign minister. She's trying as hard as she can, I suppose, in a job, but it's just a wooden, dismissive and disrespectful answer to say we don't discuss security matters. My own view as a diplomat over many years is that that formula is worn out and we shouldn't use it anymore. In fact, I think that there's a very strong case for saying that the intelligence community has got above itself. We're doing this really on behalf of the United States, the National Security Agency, which has grown to such an extent that just about everyone and his dog is being listened to around the world. The Indonesians have every right to be upset. Angela Merkel made a very good point when she said to Obama, look, why do you do this to me? I'm a friend. We're supposed to be friends in this. And Obama sort of twisted and turned but said, you know, we're not going to do it again. I don't think Prime Minister Abbott has yet got that kind of flexibility in his mind, but he certainly sure should. And it seems to me that we really have gone too far with intelligence eavesdropping. It's been going on a long time.
Yes, indeed. You describe there then a double-headed problem. One is the issue of the fact that this has become public and has angered Indonesia, and the other is what you call the woodenness, the inadequacy of our response.
The dismissiveness of our response, that's right.
So how does this get fixed?
Well, as I said, we have to really think very thoroughly about whether the advantages we gain from this kind of electronic surveillance outweighs the damage we do to our nearest neighbour of 240 million people right on our doorsteps, with whom we're trying to negotiate very delicately some kind of arrangement over both people. That's not going to work. And in fact, we have to do that not just with Indonesia, but with Indonesia in concert with all the regional neighbours. So, you know, the boat people issue is not going to go away. It's going to intensify. The Indonesians are in no mood to help us, not that they're going to help us when we're deciding arrogantly just to send the boats back, for goodness sake. So that's an issue in itself. And it'll affect all sorts of relations. I mean, next year is, as far as we're concerned, the year of Indonesia. I reckon it's the year of living dangerously.
Now, Indonesia tells us we don't do it. Should we believe them when they say that?
The Indonesians do it, but they do it in a far less effective and all-embracing way than we do. We've got. Look, we're part of a group of 5 countries: Canada, Britain, US, and New Zealand, and Australia. We share enormous amounts of intelligence. We hoover up everything on the airwaves. Indonesia is still, in many respects, a developing country, although their economic potential is enormous. Yes, they do, but they don't have the capacity we do. And I don't think there's the sort of automaticity that we have in Canberra. Oh yes, well, you know, we're part of the American alliance and we must do all this. They don't have that kind of alliance. They're an independent, free country and they're doing what they can.
When you say that the intelligence services have perhaps, you know, got above themselves, are you suggesting then that they're sort of operating even autonomously of the previous government under which this happened? Would you put any particular blame on the previous federal government?
No, the previous government was in exactly the same position as the present one. The intelligence services seem to be untouchable. You know, I remember when I was a diplomatic cadet, we didn't discuss that stuff. The so-called SIGINT, the signals intelligence. It went on all the time. Of course, then it was far less than it is now. But look, let me repeat the point, Virginia, that we haven't really gained a great deal, or what we do gain from intelligence doesn't necessarily justify the kind of angst that we create between nations. Bali bombing. We didn't know what that was going to happen. We had our intelligence in place then, but it really didn't help forecast the kind of devastation that was going to occur in Bali. And I think that it's a questionable... I've looked at so much of the product during my years as a diplomat, and really only occasionally do you see something that is something that diplomats in the normal course of their duty couldn't pick up. So I think it's too much.
There are those informed insiders who are a lot more phlegmatic about it and say, look, it goes on, it takes place, the relationship now will be testy, but you'll get past this and the relationship will be strong again. Do you have that sort of phlegmatic, rather sanguine outlook on this as well?
I do not. I do not. I have a contrary attitude. I think the last thing we should be is phlegmatic in this present situation. Australia is becoming a kicking boy for Indonesia. They've got all sorts of internal tensions and problems of their own leading up to elections, but in some ways you could say this is a rather convenient lightning rod that Canberra provides to Indonesia at this time. And I really think we have to look at the sacred cow of gathering intelligence, hoovering up everything, including on Australian citizens as well, and see whether we really shouldn't seek to modify, restrict, confine what we're doing as far as electronics is concerned.
And what about the sharing of information between Australia and Indonesia? Does a great deal of that go on? And could it, up until now, could it have been done in a better way to prevent this?
I'm sure it does go on. It certainly has gone on constructively with regard to boat people up to a point. But we have different perspectives on this. They want to shove them onto Australia. They didn't go to Indonesia to stay there. We want to shove them back into a country that is far less powerful, has far less money than we do, far less wealthy. So yeah, we do gain in that respect. And there has been chasing down the Bali bomb killers. That was also something that we negotiated and we discussed, and we collaborated with the Indonesians. We have a strong federal police force. We have all sorts of agencies in our embassy in Jakarta. It's a bit like a mini Canberra in that sense. But you know, with all these assets, we've reached a situation now where I think probably the Australian ambassador will have to be withdrawn as a response to what the Indonesians have done, and there'll be a long period in, I predict, of sterility in the relationship, and it's not very good at all, especially when we need Indonesian goodwill and cooperation.
Just quickly and finally, I just love your reflection on something I read from Bill Clinton this morning, the former US president who's travelling in China, and he was reflecting on the Edward Snowden revelations that come from that former consultant, and he said he's afeared that we're now moving towards a period where we have no security and no privacy, a sort of a perfect storm of two unfortunate circumstances at the same time. Do you know what he means when he says that, and do you agree?
Well, I do. I think that no privacy means that every Australian, the private emails and electronic communications of every Australian citizen can be looked at, can be seen, is being hoovered up and sent to the United States particularly, who have a voracious appetite for this sort of stuff because of their own anti-terrorist industry ever since 9/11. And we should be more and more concerned about this. I think Edward Snowden and Julian Assange have done a great service to humanity to say how widespread this intelligence gathering is and how unnecessary it is and how it's become a monster feeding on itself.